over in the Cornerstone Church, originally known as St. Paul's Church, and that's where some of the children are buried in relation to those who died in the Cripples Home, later the Sunbeam House. Some of the text used in this talk tonight is text of the past, so it doesn't represent the values of today. Again, if a child was born in the 1850s, their life expectancy was about 50 years. And then in 1900 it went to 65, and someone born in 1950-ish, their life expectancy is about 87 years. And then in the year 2000, the millennium babies, they reckon they will have a life expectancy of 104 years. All going well. But children with disabilities had a much shorter life, and we can see that in some of the people that died here that were suffering from tuberculosis or rickets or one of the other diseases that were treated by the. This is a picture of little Bray before the Cripples Home. So no Cripples Home built, or Workmen's Auxiliary Workplace Institute, who was originally before Lucinda took it over. So no institution in the People's Park in the Little Bray. We then move on and look at further, and we can see people playing football down in the People's Park. So there's the people playing football away in the People's Park. This is the plan in 1859 for the layout of the whole area of Little Bray. And this area marked in red is eventually the 4 plots that make up what's known as Barkertown and the Cripples Home on the actual site down on the Lower Darling Road. In 1900, there was even plans to have a tram line going down, stopping outside the Cripples Home. Needless to say, the tram line was heading to Enniskerry, and it didn't progress because they couldn't raise enough moolah. This publication, called The Christian, published in 1883, and it's often, I think, of some dear little ones in the Cripples Home of Bray, resembles these wonderful alpine plants. It is striking sight that thousands of feet up the slopes of the great snow-capped Swiss mountains, when a climber comes across a dazzling sheet of gentians or alpine forget-me-nots, but it is far more wonderful when it comes upon the beautiful flower of peace and happiness in the midst of an atmosphere of sorrow and suffering, in a place of snow, and instead of an earthly sunshine, in the light and the love of Jesus. So this is where this writer of The Christian is comparing the children in the Cripples Home as the forget-me-not flowers. And he goes on to say, slide to the side. Just move that slide down. One of these little flowers faded away, a little fellow by the name of Henry Keegan. He was only 14 years old. For more than half his life, great suffering from the hip disease. It would be touching if they put on his headstone, never able to play. Henry is one of those that is buried over in the Cornerstone graveyard. And it would be very true for always when other children were hopping about on their crutches, he used to sit and draw upon a morsel of paper or knit stockings. All his suffering was borne patiently and without murmur. Just thinking of a moment of the terrible it would be seen to you if where you were told you could not play any more cricket, lawn tennis or school games, and in the future you would have to sit still on your limbs useless. Well, under such circumstances, Henry Keegan made, the Bible, just the keystone effect. Yeah. The Bible, his constant companion, and the 10th verse of the 41st chapter of Isaiah being one of his chief comforts, and it was of the dear lady, Mrs. Sullivan, who owed his happy home in Bray. And this is the 10th verse of Isaiah. So, Henry Keegan, we know, was born in Bishop Street, opposite the National Archives and Jacobs in Bishop Street. He was born the 22nd of April 1867 to Peter Keegan and Frances Peacock. Again, I just need to just move that for a second just to get the keystone. No, the keystone away so that I can move it closer. Get it all in. Perfect. So here we can see that Henry was born in Bishop Street. He was actually born in 34, but the parents lived in 19 Bishop Street, and he died on the 5th of October 1882, aged 15 years of age, and he was suffering from tuberculosis and arthritis for over 7 years. So this was the Cripples Home in Bray, after the Fair Green and opposite the Park Lodge in the People's Park. Lucinda witnessed suffering of many children when she was a lady superintendent in the Adelaide Hospital in Dublin. And she knew that from their spinal and joint diseases, being shuffled from one hospital to another and then released into the care of the mother in damp and dismal, and only to return a couple of months later, thinner and more suffering than before. So she decided that she would open the Cripples Home, and it was initially done to accommodate 14 children with tuberculosis and rickets. This plaque shows that Lucinda opened the home in 1874 after a deliverance from a shipwreck on Lake Zurich in 1872. Lucinda had travelled to Europe looking at these various sanatoriums and institutions where they catered for both adults and children, and she was learning all the time, and these practices would then be later put into her working here in Bray. So she visited homes in Switzerland, in Dusseldorf in Germany, the Cripples Home in Marylebone in London, and then as Lady Superintendent of the Adelaide Hospital. And this is one of the people that she went to visit when she was in Germany. What Bray looked like when Lucinda was setting up her home. And she would attend services in St. Paul's Church. Notice the change of the way they, and again, the buildings toted by. This was the Bray Workmen's Institute before it became the Cripples Home in 1874. So this section here was the Workmen's Institute. This was added on in 1876. We all know it today as Bargain Town on the Lower Darga Road. And this is the site of Bargain Town. And then these here are various other buildings attached to it. Our best reference for the actual establishment of the home is Bray Emmons and Burns by A.L. Doran, published in 1903. And we can see here that it was the first of its kind in Ireland, opened in 1874. And every child that was brought to the home was also enlisted in the Band of Hope, and it was for children, boys between the age of 3 and 8 years of age, and girls from 3 to 12 years of age. £100 donation, £10 was to keep a child in food for the year, and £100 with the bed, and we can see the beds were donated by various people, including Dr. Thompson, who is buried over in St. Paul's graveyard, and his obelisk statue is outside the Royal Hotel. Lucinda either had people donate money to her, people in wills and bequests, because the county councils and other bodies did not give direct funding to the Cripples Home back then. So the sales of work was one of the methods that Lucinda used to raise funds to support the home, initially with 14 children and then extending it out to 30 children. She was also supporting the Adelaide Hospital where she previously worked, and here we can see her taking in fancy goods and toys for the Christmas fair for the Adelaide Hospital. So all the hospitals in Dublin were also looking for funds to keep going. John. There was other homes and institutions in Bray, and we had the Elliott Home for Waifs and Strays that's now located in the Pace School opposite Lidl on the Dublin Road. We had the Marino School on the Church Road, the Meath Protestant Industrial School, where St. Patrick's School is on the Vivy Hill. St. Patrick's School opposite the Town Hall. Yeah. We had Glencree Boys Reformatory, the first of its kind in Ireland, set up in 1859. Then we had an industrial school out in Newtown, Mount Kennedy, and we had the Bray Babies Club established in, first of all, Parnell Road and later the Herbert Road. Sorry. Do you know where the clinic is on the Herbert Road? The red brick building, the doctors, that was where it was located on the Herbert Road. Again, with the First World War, they opened 2 hospitals in Bray, the Duke of Connaught Hospital in the St. Patrick's School on the Vivy Road, and the Princess Patricia Hospital in the International Hotel, now Bray Bowl. And again, the seafront had the ramps built so people would have easy access on and off the Grand Marine Promenade. We often hear the phrase, "A Dickie Bird told me," and this book was published by the Force for Good, a philanthropy organisation in the 1880s, and they set up and they published this publication, and it tells you about organisations across the world. And here we can see that Lucinda Sullivan hopes in the near future, this is September 1884, to create as the Lady Superintendent, she's going to establish a home in Bray for the care of crippled children.
And do you know, sorry, why she picked Bray?
We do. It comes out in a minute.
Okay.
She did a GoFundMe page, as we will call it today. And the GoFundMe page was published in the Daily Express, where she said, "I'm going to open a home. Can anyone send me contributions?" And within a month, she had received £300, and by the end of that year, she had received £1,000. So the first GoFundMe page in relation to Cripples Home. She was very religious, and you can see here in this book of the YWCA, the Young Women's Christian Association, that she held or did her duties in the Adelaide Hospital, and also found time for Bible studies, and also did the training of nurses in the class. So the lady superintendent was responsible for the training of the nurses in the hospital and the day-to-day management of the hospital. This is a picture we assume is the matron or the lady superintendent at the time and Lucinda Sullivan. We come to Maura's question now. Why did she use Bray? First of all, Judge Crampton was on the board of the Adelaide Hospital and was very fond of Lucinda and gave her both monetary facilities and also picked out the Workmen's Institute building on the Lower Dargan Road. Her mother, her widow mother, lived on Carlton Terrace, Bray, and her sister lived on the Mead Road. Her brother-in-law married Selina Plumber of Old College, and they gave both monetary and vegetables and flowers to the Cripples Home. It was close to St. Paul's Church, and the Reverend Scott and his family, and Gustav Scott, who became secretary of the Cripples Home, so they were very much involved in the thing. All the medical surgeons had their out offices or their out of town residences and outer surgeries here in Bray at Duncairn and Prince of Wales Terrace in Bray. So you had the facilities and also the artisan dwellings, so they knew the families involved as well. And it was close to Dublin and the rent was a lot cheaper. Just an overview of the general health care of the County Wicklow. In 1766, a county home was set up, and if you really took ill, you were sent off to the Richmond Hospital in Dublin, but you had to be one of the lucky ones because they only had 27 beds set out for County Wicklow. And when the First World War came along, each county was reduced in number, so Bray had to give 2 beds in the First World War for soldiers coming home from the First World War. So Bray was down, or County Wicklow was down to 25 beds in the Richmond Hospital in Dublin. Then you had the establishment of fever hospitals in Newtown, Mount Kennedy and Enniskerry in 1814, in Bray and Arklow and Stratford and Slaney 1817 and 1818. And then there was also the fever hospital in Delvey and Wicklow, and there was 20 dispensaries, and they were your primary health care centre of the early years in medical care. Then the Rathdown Union Workhouse was established in 1839. We better know that as Loughlinstown Hospital. And it was opened on the 1st of February 1841, and then it was deployed as a Dublin District Hospital in May 1920 and became known as St. Colin Hills. There was workhouses in the area, and they were in Rathrum, Baltinglass and Chilena. And the only one in the whole of County Wicklow that didn't have a boundary outside it was Rathrum, and that then became the county home. And that's the reason why it became the county home. They were taken under the County Wicklow Public Health Act of 1875, they came under, and this was a publication in 1881 in an attempt to amalgamate them all into the medical facilities for County Wicklow. Also in 1862, the Poor Law Guardians decided that they would take in non-destitute people to be treated in the hospitals in the workhouses. We mentioned earlier the Band of Hope. The Band of Hope was set up. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Brian.
Sorry. So the Band of Hope was set up, and it was a temperance movement, and every child that entered the Cripples Home in Bray was entered into this Band of Hope. Yeah.
When you say that it's standard hope for girls of boys of 3 to 8 and girls of 3 to 12, what happened at the age of after 8? Did they just get chucked out of band or would they home as well?
We don't know.
Okay.
This is the short answer.
I can answer that, Brian.
Right.
Join the temperance movement.
They joined the temperance movement, okay. So here we can see that when Lucinda was expanding the home at the Darga Road, adding on the extension, she was allowing it be available for family worship, Bible classes and Band of Hope meetings. So she had a vision that it wouldn't be used just solely for the children. She would use the hall in the building for other meetings as well. And here we can see the Band of Hope, and they're having a choir, and these are the people, and the proceeds are going to the Cripples Home, and it was held in the parochial hall on the Florence Road, on the Novara Avenue in 1902. And a top-class lineup of performers and solos and recitals. There was one major setback to Lucinda, and this was in the Poor Afflicted Persons Ireland Bill of 1878. When the bill was passing through Parliament, they decided that they would rule out the word home, and county council would only support people going into schools or hospitals with no homes. So therefore Lucinda had to find the money to keep a child in the actual Cripples Home. So here we can see in England, Scotland and Wales, the county councils funded the children going into homes, hospitals and schools. In Ireland, anybody who was dumb, deaf, blind or crippled, there was no support from the state.
And that was done deliberately.
What?
That was done deliberately.
Yeah, yes, no, as they're going through the
Like
Pardon?
they didn't allow them to change their name or anything. No, it wasn't the name.
No.
No, they just didn't want to pay for them. Yeah.
It was Ireland, or that's why it
But
was.
no, this was under the English.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, but it was Ireland, that's why they did it.
Oh.
So it's strange to think that this happened back when the Poor Afflicted Persons Bill was going through Parliament in 1878. Here we can see the report in 1890, and there were 6 trustees. There's still 6 trustees?
9.
9. And they had 38 beds, 20 for girls and 18 for boys, and then it shows the income. But it also says down here that they're planning to put in a memorial wing to the late Mrs. Sullivan. We mentioned earlier on that Lucinda founded the home following a boating accident on Lake Lucerne, or Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. And here we can see she was travelling to see Dorothea Turtle, who had a sanatorium on Lake Geneva. And this is where she was heading to, Maladon. And this is the home. And the home today is attached to the church, and it's a sanatorium, and includes a retirement home, a day centre and a doctor's office. So still used in medical purposes. Lucinda published a number of publications, and these publications include a diary of a month in her in Switzerland. Then she did a publication for the British Association for the Advancement of Science. She also did one on an address to the total absence and the Women's Temperance Association, and then also an address to the hospitals in Dublin, and this is just one of her addresses. And there's copies of these available in the information, and they're also available online as well if you want to read them. See the children in the People's Park and looking back at the home. This is the 1911 census, and we can see in here it gives a brief description of the suffering of the children in relation to their ailments, either rickets, tuberculosis, and again it's 30, and again it shows the initial of the person, and we can see where they came from and what age they were. The oldest being 21, and the youngest in 1911 was just age 4. This is where they came from. South Africa, Dublin, Londonderry, Limerick, Cork, Antrim, Wicklow, Monaghan, Fermanagh, Cavan and Donegal in the 1911 census. And their ages being 4 to 21. Lucinda would have passed the Royal Hotel here, and she would have passed Dr. Thompson's memorial, and Dr. Thompson's wife kindly gave the hospital £100, and Dr. Thompson died in 1876. And here we can see that the Bray Auxiliary Hospital for Incurables, formerly the Workmen's Home, and again in here we can see that Lady Aberdeen, or Lady Abercorn, the Lord Lieutenant's wife, was very supportive of Lucinda and her efforts in the treatment of children. Messrs. McConnell and Murphy, who did the surveying of the extension in 1876, and the widow of a clergyman, decided that a second edition of this book, called A Child's Primer Natural History, would be, the proceeds would be given to Lucinda in the Cripples Home. And this book is well known for its woodcuts, drawings, and also its inscription. And I'll just give you the one of the penguin.
Very good. Very good, yeah.
It's a nice woodcut drawings, aren't they?
Very good, yeah.
The Ministering League, Children's League, Bray branch that was set up under the Countess of Meath, she organised a concert, and again in the parochial hall, where the schools of Bray Bridge School, so just immediately over Bray Bridge, there was a school that was later moved to the Herbert Road and then to the New Court Road eventually. And then there was also the Meath Industrial School, which was up where St. Patrick's School is on the Vivy Road. And then there was Mrs. Heatley's infant school, and we know that Mrs. Heatley was Charlotte Sharp. She married John Sharp in 1894, and when he died in 1916, she married George Abraham Heatley in 1926, and her name became Heatley. And they raised enough funds to support a cot in Lucinda's home in Bray. Again, your Christmas Carol service in 1905 raised £7, 2 shillings, and it was done by Mr. Reginald Budd, and he lived in Esmond Terrace on the Dartford Road. And his wife was very good at the old piano. And again, here we can see in 1922 Lucinda putting an advertisement in the papers for Louisa, her sister, putting an advertisement in the paper saying that they had vacancies at present. So they weren't up to the full complement of almost 40 children. The biggest disaster that struck the home was the flood of 1905, and the lower ground floor of the building was totally destroyed. And we can see here that the basket room, the schoolroom, the kitchen, the dining floor later gave way, so the floor of the building collapsed. Then also we can see that the lost children's clothing, furniture were all in ruin, and this was a cause of the great 1905 flood in Little Bray. Also, they lost the items that they were getting ready for their sale of work in September of that year. So the baskets and other artefacts that they would have gathered for the sale of work was lost in 1905. And here we can see the flood outside the Cripples Home in 1905. We have a list of all the other people who were affected and were going to be moved to new accommodation in Bray in 1905. But the children had to dry out the house, the home, and then work on to try and improve things thereafter the flood of 1905. And here we can see the baskets, and this is from a publication, and it shows the Cripples Home in Bray and the basket weaving items that they made. So here we can see a person doing a rattan chair, making baskets and board cages, etc. in the thing. And these would be made for the sale of work that was to take place that September. We move over to another home, and this is William Henry Elliott's home, and this was located in the Pace building, now on the Upper Darga Road, opposite Lidl, and we can see that it was originally set up in Dublin and then moved. The Lord Mead would allow them to go to let the house, and they would go out for the summer for 2 months in Delgany. And these were called waifs and strays. So children that couldn't be put into prison were sent out to this home to be looked after. And this was Mrs. Elliott's home for waifs and strays.
Where's Abbey View?
Abbey View is where the Pace is on the Upper Darga Road.
Does it still exist? It does.
It's a school for the students, Spanish students.
Okay.
Spanish students.
Then there was back to Charles.
What? And then go back to Charlotte Street in Dublin. And this is the person, Mrs. Smiley, and then Joshua Smiley, and this is the person, she was originally known as Franks, and she set up the homes. Also, some of the children that were in the Smiley homes were sent to Canada because they opened a home in Ontario, and some were lost on the Empress of Ireland when it went down in the North Atlantic. And there we can see the homes that were in Dollymount, Kingstown, Dollymount, Kingstown, Sandycombe, and Ontario in Canada. So that some of the children, when they came of age, would be moved to Ontario to give them a new start in life, and this is where they went. And this is £1,000 a month that is required to do the work in these schools in Dublin, Bray, Sandycombe, and Ontario. And that's 1911.
Sorry, where was the Smiley home then?
What?
I'm getting confused, isn't it? Where was that Smiley home then?
The Smiley home is where Pace is,
Oh, that was Pace.
Abbey View on the
For
Dublin
waifs
Road.
and strays.
Yeah. Then we have, in 1908, the Bray Babies Club was established. And basically this was set up under the Women's National Health group, who were trying to root out TB and tuberculosis. And again, we can see that they set up a free milk station in Bray for pasteurised milk to be handed out to the children of Bray. And where Rory Benville's offices were on the Sea Point Road. That was where one of the milk stations was located in Bray. This is the handout of the free milk. Now, on Brighton Terrace, there's these two houses with the medical symbol shown over it, and that's where the original Bray Babies Club was established before moving to the Herbert Road, where the medical surgery is now on the Herbert Road. And there was a Babies Club in Cool, Newcastle, and again the Free Milk in 1919. This image is of the Bray Babies Club at the exhibition in the RDS of the Spring Show of 1908.
I suppose we'd be looking for fundraising there.
Yeah, sorry. That's in the Spring Show of 1908, and their stand in the Spring Show of 1908.
So their main aim was to give better nutrition to the
Better nutrition, better health care for women and babies, and also to rule out tuberculosis and the use of unpasteurised milk. If it wasn't pasteurised. They also had this wagon that went round Ireland, Wanderley wagon, and it brought people in and showed how to clean, how to look after babies, sterilisation, and also the treatment of the rule out, and it was called the Sláinte wagon, and it went round Ireland on a grand tour of Ireland.
Yeah.
And here we can see the Sláinte wagon. And again, we can see here that the Bray and Terranure branch in 1911 were reporting satisfactory results in 1911, after being established in 1908. The district nurse in Ballywatton and in Balcall was funded by Lady Powersport under the Jubilee Nurses Association. And this is where they looked after. So if a child took ill in Balcall or in Ballywatton, they went to the Enniskerry District Hospital, not to Bray. Bray only looked after Bray. And a child in Little Bray had to go to Monkstown or Dunleary, the Cottage Hospital in Monkstown, or the St. Michael's in Dunleary. This was a whole effort was done to eradicate TB, and again your BCG injections, and again we can see an address by Lady Aberdeen to the Bray Babies Club in 1913. The chief person behind the Bray Babies Club was Mrs. Henry, and again these are other people involved, and we're very lucky to have a photograph of Mrs. Henry, and she was part of the Sláinte bulletin, and this was a bulletin that went out to tell people about better health care, better treatment, and the new advances that were coming in medicine. This is again pictures of the 1908 spring show, and they had the Mead Industrial School for Boys displaying their bootmaking wares, and the Mead Industrial School for Boys is now the training school in Blackrock, Newtown Park Avenue, up that way, that the school on Newtown Park Avenue in Blackrock. Carrisford School in Blackrock. That was the Mead Industrial School for Boys, and then the Mead Industrial School for Girls were displaying their needlework.
Sorry, you are talking about Obelisk Park, or are you in Blackrock?
No, this is the Carrisford, the training teachers. It was a teacher
training school.
Yeah. That was there. This is the census of 1911, looking at the people in the Mead Industrial School that was now the St. Patrick's National School in Bray, and there we can see their names and where they come from, and they're listed out in full names, even though they were in an cluster school in Bray, and they're all under-age children. Where the Cripples Home, they only get their initials.
So was there a reason?
What?
Why was that? I wonder.
It shouldn't have been, but that's what they did it. Normally they would have anybody in either army, police, or an institution, they would generally just show their initials.
Oh, right.
There was also the Marine School, but that was founded in 1951 in a house called Carrickbray on Church Road. And again, this was for cerebral palsy. And again, you can see it was a big fundraising. And Mrs. de Butler and the, what do you call her name?
Mrs. Hines.
Mrs. Hines, yes. Mrs. Hines was very much active in getting help for this school to be set up. It's now a housing estate, but that house is still retained. So you can go into it on Church Road, the new name, I forget the name of what you call it.
The school is still there, isn't it?
What? The school is still there, but they have moved on.
Right.
Yes.
It's on the corner of the Bilby Road and Church Road. The people of Bray decided that the children in the home in Little Bray needed a donkey and cart for getting around. And they raised funds and got the donkey and cart. And Stanley Corcoran in Woodbrook decided that he would support the upkeep of the donkey and cart. And here we can see, and he was Councillor Corcoran, the drinks people. And this is, we call it Stanley's donkey, will we? That was Stanley Corcoran. And this appeared in the Melbourne newspaper of 1889. And even the word of Lucinda had gone all sides of the globe in relation to her work. The classroom down in the building on the Derby Road. And this comes from the Mother's Companion of 1893, and again, the Cripples Home in Bray, and the two nurses there looking after 3 children. 4 children?
4 children.
Yeah. Donations was a big thing, and Lucinda's way of taking money out of people was remarkable, and Louisa after her. If she knew where there was a penny, she would go and get it. And here we can see people giving over this person EAS £100 in memory to the Cripples Home Bray. Mrs. Thompson, on behalf of her memory of her late husband, Dr. Thompson, who was the person who fought the outbreak of cholera in Bray, and this obelisk is just outside the door here. Lucinda was a great artist, and if you trawl the Art Network and watercolourist sites, you will occasionally find a painting of Lucinda crops up. So she must have painted these for the sales of work, and then they are now coming up at various sales. So keep an eye out, you might see a Lucinda Sullivan painting coming out. They're coming in at a fairly reasonable price. Keep an eye out, these are ones done, a landscape and St. Agnes done by Lucinda. So the new Derby Road was being laid out in 1866, and the new Commons Road, this was called in 1873. So it got a full upgrade, including the railings and the entrance to the People's Park. Lucinda wasn't looking just at home here, she was also looking further afield, and she was contributing to India, where there was a drought and a famine. And here we can see that there was in 1884, the Indian Female Evangelist Group gave a talk in Bray, and this was held in the home on the Derby Road, and they were raising funds for the famine in India. Likewise, we can see that the Spanish and Portuguese and Mexican churches were donating funds to to Bray. So a word crossover in relation to the actual treatment and care of women and children. And again, the Zena Bible Medical Mission, or the BZ or ZBMM, tongue twister, and this was going and helping women in India. And again, we saw the picture earlier on in the video, and these are some of the children. Some were involved in the Scouts and the Guide movement. Again, the people who are buried in the graveyard in Little Bray, including Henry John Keegan, that we saw, the Forget-Me-Not earlier on. And then the people who are buried in Dean's Grange. And the plot over there is known as the Donkey Field. And if you go into Dean's Grange in the records, they're shown as the Donkey Field, Dean's Grange. And it's very fitting to go back to the donkey that was given by the people of Bray and also supporters. There's also graves in St. Patrick's in Enniskerry, and then Lucinda and her sister are buried in Mount Jerome. Again, people who were in the Cripples Home, some survived and went further afield. And here we can see John Gibson, and he was born in Coot Hill, and because of his disability, and he joined the army, and they thought that he was a spy, and he was arrested a couple of times and released when people vetted for him. But he was going on the Leinster, and we can see here that he was in the Claremont Institute heading for London, and he was also in the Cripples Home before that. So they went from one institution to another. And we can see another person then, Gerald Palmer, who left Bray Railway Station, was brought to Bray Railway Station and was heading to a Bernardo's home in London. And we can see here that he was also lost on the RMS Leinster. So two people involved with the Cripples Home were lost on the RMS Leinster. And that's Gerald Palmer, who was from Cork. Dr. Bernardo's home. The matron, Mary Bryson, who we can see died aged 58 years of age in 1919, and again she was buried in Enniskerry, and thanks to Judy Cameron in Enniskerry we were able to identify her grave, and there's where Mary is buried in St. Patrick's Church in Enniskerry. In steps Matron Manning, and she first of all writes to the town council and asks them to put the sign that no children should be playing football opposite the Cripples Home, as it was breaking the windows. The only sign down there today is no playing golf, and it's a little bit further up in the park. Again, in 1927, they introduced the new treatment of arc lamp treatment, and this is the sun arc treatment, and we can see the nurse in 1928 in the home wearing the dark glasses and treating the children under the lamp. Remember, the ESB is just established in 1927, and here we have the new development of these arc lamps being brought into hospitals. Homes. They also had a balcony where they would bring the children out to get fresh air, and again, anybody with TB, was the thing to do, was to bring them out and give them fresh air. That was the cure back then. Again, the matron was looking, they were going to employ a matron, and again, people could apply, and we can see here the person to be trained in relation to the children in the Cripples Home, and £90 and £100 in 1927 was the going salary for a nurse in
That was
1927.
good at that time.
And you could apply to Miss Scott Pembroke Lodge on the Church Road. There was a little bit of a coming of heads to heads when the matron and the children decided that they were going to rename the Cripples Home to be called the Sunbeam Home. And the Sunshine Home in Stillorgan said, it's too close, we're looking for the same pool of money, can you not come up with something else? And the matron and the children stuck firm and called it Sunbeam House. And this is the Mrs. O'Brien of Airfield in Dundrum, who was responsible for that, and the key figure in the establishment of St. John Campbell's School. Yeah, we see some happy children on the swing in Bray. And there is matron Manning, and she was born in Rathdrum. And here we can see, again, just coming up, they had war bonds, and these were maturing, etc. And they were going to find there was going to be a shortfall in the funds to run the Cripples Home. They were always just one step away from the brink and trying to keep surviving and moving along. And here we can see the Sunshine Home. So in 1960, a proposal was put forward to move from the Lower Derby Road to a house that had become available, Glenmalure House on the Vivy Road, that's opposite Seacrest, basically heading in towards Old Court. And beside Old Court, there's Glenmalure Hotel and Old Court House. And that was where the move, and this was a proposal to sell, and the home moved in 1963. Just a couple of other things before we wrap. Outside the hotel here and along the street there was broom walks, and children were employed to keep these areas clean of horse manure so that the ladies in their long dresses wouldn't get dirty. There's one still outside the top of the Florence Road, and there's a few more dotted around it.
I try to walk it when I can because somebody put it down.
And these were the broom walks, and this is what children would be involved in doing. Also, the Education Acts, that people who were attending school had to stay in school up to the age of 12. And again, here we can see from the local authorities of Ireland and Scotland that the no home could be paid for out of public funds. And then in 1889 they brought in the protection of the cruelty of children, and Lucy Griffin of Clonmore in Enniskerry was appointed the first inspector under this Child Protection Act. Later became the Association for the Protection of Children. And again, we can see people could arrest for the abuse of children. Anybody who had more than 3 children could be inspected monthly. The Factory Act is 1901, and there are many cases in Bray where they had children employed after the hours agreed, so you couldn't have a child after 3 o'clock on a Saturday working. And a couple of occasions in the Bray Dark Laundry, children were working after 3 o'clock, and they were fined and prosecuted for having children employed after hours. This is a place called Mettray near Tours in France, and it was a French penal colony operated and controlled by the Oblate Fathers, and they were asked to open the Glencree Reformatory in 1859, and they basically did a cut and paste. The regime that was in power or in France was brought to Glencree. And if you look here at the square and the buildings, this is the town it is today, and the buildings, and Glencree. And this is the Glencree Boys Band that played at the Spring Show of 1908. And also in the Herrick Park in 1907. The snow hit various times in Glencree. And in this book, on the big frieze, it says that the children on Sunbeam House in Bray built a snowman, and it was still there in June after the snow fell. 1947. We also had Operation Shamrock, where people who were taken from Poland and Germany after the war and brought over and placed in Glencree, and it was operated by the Irish Red Cross refugees. We also had Father Healy, who was the parish priest in Bray, and they set up a memorial fund to run a hospital, but it then combined with the Mead Convalescent Home that was established in 1882, and this was on the Lower Darther Road, almost a field away from the Cripples Home on the Darther Road. Many visitors came to visit and see the work that was done by Lucinda and her sister Louisa and the other patrons in the Cripples Home, and they included William Gladstone, Olive Peyton Powell. Alfred Board, the Lord Mayor of Dublin, was a regular visitor to open the sale of work in the Cripples Home. Augustus Scott, who was the secretary of the Cripples Home, in Sunbeam House. We have done a family tree of the various children who were in the home and are buried in the various graveyards, but also we discovered that Robert Sullivan, who she married in 1865, he died in 1867. If you ever pick up a geography book in school, its origins were Robert Sullivan. If you picked up any Longman's book in school, its origins was Robert Sullivan. And when he died in 1867, he left £45,000 in his will. He decided that he would only give 3,000 to Lucinda. The rest was given to education establishments in his hometown in Hollywood in County Down.
Oh, yes, Sullivan is
Sullivan up for
school called
school.
Sullivan there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Sullivan. Oh, good.
That's the name.
And this again, this branch here in red shows the only branch of the Sullivan family that still exists today, and their solicitor's office in Dublin, the solicitor in Dublin. Here we can see Robert Sullivan's and his 45,000, and again we can see in relation to the people who were appointed his executors. And he lived in Clarinda Park in Monkstown, Kingstown. And again, this is the family trees going out. Lucinda died in 1882, no, this is her mother, died in 1887, who lived in Carlton Terrace in Bray, and her sister Louisa, who lived on the Mead Road at Oakland Terrace on the Mead Road. And that's Lucinda and also Louisa. There was also the Bray Girls Friendly Society, which was a equivalent of the Girl Guides, and it was set up in the Royal Marine Hotel in 1876 and founded in Bray. The Scout movement in 1908, and this is the Scouts on Bray Beach. doing their semaphore. And some of the scouts were headed to a jamboree in Birkenhead in England in 1920. And the final shot is Mrs. Griffin, who was the Infant Life Protection Act, and she was the first person appointed in Ireland under the Act. And we can see here a Mrs. Tennant of Bray, who had 4 babies, and she was renting them out for work, i.e. child sweeps. And this is in 1897, and we can see the details of her case, where she was only fined 2 shillings and sixpence and 1 shilling in cost for each child. Just, we know this is the end of the talk in relation to the 150 years of Sunbeam House and the Cripples Home, and here we can see what's coming up. We have on the 18th of March a walk down Bray Main Street at 3 o'clock, where we're doing Patrick, Shamrocks and Snakes. Then in the 21st we have the history of the Phoenix Park, then we have the ice houses walking down, and we have all our programme done out to November. A special thanks to Dalwyn and to John for their atrocious support in getting this talk together, to the Cornerstone Church, who allowed us this evening to lay the wreaths on the gravestone, and to the Royal Hotel, who have laid on tea and coffee and biscuits for us. Again, this marks 150 years of the Cripples Home in Bray. Thank you very much.
Thank you.